Hey y'all, welcome to day 4 of Hesperie's training. I'm going to show y'all how I caught her without the lead rope. She was almost ready to go without the halter as well. I got her drawing into me almost immediately, gave her a second, and went to clip the lead rope on. She got a little distracted by scratching her face, but when she regained focus, I was able to put the tail end of the lead rope over her neck just as a precaution so that she would feel like she was already connected with me and that I could clip it on very easily. I unclipped it and reapproached her a few times, redoing this process so that she could have some practice with that and not associate the lead rope going on with having to go to work right away. She was being really cute, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I was allowing her to do a little bit of investigating with her mouth. Horses do check things out with their mouths just out of curiosity. She wasn't being pushy or aggressive or anything like that. Now, if she went to using her teeth, I would send her away from me, but she was just trying to figure out what I am. I gave her a quick refresher on her lunging cues before getting into what we were going to work on that day, which was picking up her front feet. I'm using the term lunging loosely. It's more so sending her back and forth at the walk. I don't want her to have any unnecessary exercise because she is so thin and her hooves are very uncomfortable, which is why I wanted to teach her some hoof handling skills as quickly as possible so she could get trimmed. She could still get a little bit confused about which direction she was supposed to be going from time to time, but she was figuring it out. Her leading was improving every day. We did this little exercise with small circles and changing directions while yielding the hindquarters, which helps build forward motion. I tried to do a bit of a refresher on petting both sides, but she was distracted by how much her eyes were itching. The flies had been getting in them, and I made it a goal to get a fly mask on her as quickly as I felt like it was safe to do so. It may be another unpopular opinion, but I will sometimes, within reason, let my horses use me as a scratching post, especially if it's a horse I'm trying to connect and bond with, such as a wild Mustang. It may seem like a little thing, but it's big for them to start to open up like that. Mustangs tend to be very stoic in the beginning and show no weakness, so if she's showing me that she's itchy, I'm going to try to help her out. I'm just going to show some brief clips from her refresher to having ropes put on her. That way you can see kind of what we did, but it would take too much time if I showed absolutely everything. So I'm going to get on to the focus of this video, which is teaching her picking up her front feet. Then we did something new from the previous day. This was the first time I put a rope on Hesperie's croup, and she was a bit weirded out by the feeling. She's like, how do I get this off me? And so I was just waiting her out until she settled. Unsurprisingly, the rope came off her, so I tried this time, instead of leaving it on her, to just put it on her for a second at a time so she could start to get used to the feeling in a bit smaller doses. When I left it on her croup, she went, okay, well, I didn't die last time, so I guess I'm fine. She was weirded out again with it on her right side, but she figured it out and didn't panic as much that time. Similar process with the stick and string. She was still a bit protective of her hindquarters, so I just repeated that until she was comfortable. Something touching their front legs can be quite a funny feeling for them. I was making sure to stand off to the side because I saw on day one how quick she can be with her front feet. It's not abnormal for horses to stomp or strike when they feel something on their front legs. It's definitely a funny feeling for them, and horses have to be cautious about anything touching their legs because they need to protect them. This is why I touch their legs with objects before I go down there with my head and why I wear a helmet. I couldn't help but leave this in. Normally I take out the in-between stuff, but she's just really cute. I do love this mare a lot. We took a break from the objects and I went a little further down her body with my hand. You can see her back muscles tense up, but she didn't do anything. I was almost ready to put the rope around her leg. I just wanted her to get used to this feeling so that she would be prepared for my hand going down her leg eventually. I scared her a little. You have to be kind of aggressive to get the right throw so that the rope wraps around the leg. There's a whole art to it. I'm gonna pretend I nailed it immediately and didn't have to make a jump cut. So I used the stick to pull it around her leg and pick it up with my hand. That way my head wasn't going anywhere near the ground in her hoof. There's a lot of reasons I teach them to pick up their legs using ropes before I try to do it with my hand. It's very important for safety. It keeps my head out of the danger zone while she's figuring out how to respond to that pressure. It's very common for horses to strike, paw, or kick with the back feet while they're figuring it out, and it's very understandable for them to do so. It's hard for a wild animal to feel like their legs are restrained, which is why I take this process very slow and do all of the preparation that I can. I also find that they just understand it better with the rope versus if I were to go down there with my hand, I would confuse her even more. This first step is just about getting her used to the feeling of something wrapping around her leg and moving up and down the same way my hand will. Then I try not to drop the rope and I start to lead her around without any pressure on her leg. The rope I'm using is just a bit too short and sometimes makes it hard, so here I did actually start applying pressure when she's already moving her leg forward. I just ask her to move it just a bit farther forward with the rope. This way I'm just enhancing something she's already doing instead of asking her to move a completely stationary leg, which would be a bit harder for her to figure out. Teaching them to have their hooves handled like this has the added benefit of getting them super used to ropes all around their legs and applying pressure. I see horses get tangled up in lunge lines all the time, or reins if their rider falls off, and it's very important that the horse doesn't panic in those situations, so they have to be used to things going all around their legs. It's also very important if a horse ever gets stuck in a fence or something of the sort, that they don't panic when they feel their leg restrained. There I applied pressure on the rope, asking her to pick her foot up the same way I would need her to if I were going to pick her hoof out, and she figured it out really fast, so she got a big release after that, and I took the rope off her leg. I put it back on after a few minutes and went to work on the next step. I can't tell how far I got before she got nervous and backed away. I ended up turning her around, that way the camera could see. This is kind of a game of how far can I get before she gets nervous, with the goal being to take my hand away before she picks her foot up. Although she moved backwards, she still figured this out really well. It's pretty repetitive and she kept getting nervous and moving, so I just kept patiently working with her. I really thought I had it here, but I think I tried to hold her leg just a second too long and she started moving. This is where she got a bit frustrated, which was completely understandable, and she started pawing. This is where Mustang training can get a bit frustrating because sometimes you go forwards and sometimes you go backwards. I obviously sped that clip up. She pawed for a minute. There wasn't any pressure on the rope. I was just waiting her out. And now she's kind of going, I don't understand, so I'm just going to keep pawing. This all was 100% my fault, just an error in timing that led to her getting confused and frustrated. I'm gonna speed this up because I want to share the repetition without this video being 45 minutes long. Finally, I was able to lift her leg with my hand and with the right timing, lower her leg and take the rope off. This is exactly what I was aiming for in the beginning. I then did all of the same steps on the other side and it was a lot less eventful. Everything went a whole lot smoother. I'll just show y'all some clips. Eventually I was able to pick up that leg too. This was a really good start for her and it wasn't long before I was actually able to trim her hooves. Well, thank y'all so much for watching and stay tuned for the next SB video. I'm really excited to share her progress.